I would like for this panel to introduce themselves, and so they can just start off right here. There's a mic right here. There's a mic right here. Go ahead and stand and introduce yourself.
Good morning. My name is Marcus Davis.
Good evening. My name is Ivy McGregor.
Excellent.
Good evening. My name is Remus Wright.
Good evening. My name is Jolanda Jones.
No, Brother Cornell West is my name.
I'm James Dixon. I'm here with Cornell West.
Good evening. My name is Marlon Whitley.
Good evening. My name is Christopher Carter.
I'm Brother Robert Muhammad.
Tonight we have an agenda. We have an agenda tonight to deal with the subject of success versus greatness, destroying mediocrity in our community. Let us just quickly understand the word, what is greatness? Let's deal with the word greatness. What is greatness? I heard you speak in your presentation just about greatness, but let's just go over that again. What is greatness?
I'll begin. I was looking up the word greatness, and I looked up success first, and I found that success is defined as favorable, desired outcome, the gaining of wealth or fame, and then this one last definition caught my attention, one that succeeds. But greatness is defined this way: elaborate, ample, numerous, being beyond the average, mighty, intense, imminent, grand, long, continual, markedly superior in character, quality, or skill, excellent, more distant in family generation, meaning that greatness covers more ground. Success, again, one that succeeds. Greatness, generation.
Wow. So generation, greatness. Someone's add on right here. Good. She gave us a lot there. Keep on adding.
I don't know if there is anything to add. I think greatness is just defined as the best that anything or one can be. It is excellence. It is the ultimate.
Okay, good. I think that success is goal-oriented, but greatness is God-centered. And I don't speak of a religious tradition or a Christian affiliation or a church affiliation. I speak of a person that recognizes their real wealth and their real worth as it relates to God himself. I believe that that's important for young people to know today, that our greatest enemy is not racism, sexism, or things of that nature. Our greatest enemy is average. Average is the enemy. Because when we teach our children, when we allow our children to foster a spirit of average, that always helps them to slip down the slope and just get by. One thing that I really thought about in the Bible that really impressed me about those good old Hebrew boys, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they were men of brilliance. They were children that came from different communities, from different quadrants, maybe one from 3rd Ward, maybe one from 5th Ward, maybe one from as far away as Woodlands. But they came together with this sense of greatness, and somebody had put that spirit in them. And I believe that's what greatness is. It's the spirit that our grandparents put in us. It's that spirit that we can succeed. Now, if you think about prior to the baby boom age, most of the people there were not what we would call successful, because they never had accomplishments or attainments financially or tangibly. But grandmama would go to church with a hole in her stocking, put some of that nail polish around it, and keep on going. But she would infuse in her child a spirit of greatness and tell them, you are somebody. And as a consequence, she might have died with little or nothing. But her grandson went on to be a great physician, cardiovascular surgeon, granddaughter, a great attorney. And I believe that greatness is in this room, as Dr. West has spoken to us tonight. It's in this room, in these children, in the youth, and the young people of this generation. It's here tonight. There are some more Ada Edwards here tonight. Right. Some more Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee's here tonight. Right. Some more Cornell West here tonight, living in the lives of 22, 23-year-old people.
I got a question as relates to that then. Okay, when you deal with success, we can all quantify that. We can say the car, the money, the house. How do you quantify greatness then? What can I look at and say, that's great?
Whenever I speak, I always give homage to my elders, to my grandmother. She's not here, but my grandmother taught me that greatness and how do you define greatness is giving 100% to the task at hand. Greatness is being kind to others. Greatness is if there are 100 people in a room and 99 of them are doing wrong, because your grandmother always teaches you right from wrong, and having the courage, because greatness requires courage, to be the one person to stand up and do the right thing. Wow. That's greatness. Okay. And greatness is what your grandmother or your mother or your village, because I believe it takes a village. And I mean, Councilwoman Edwards is in the village that helps raise me. But greatness is when you ask the hard question that nobody wants to hear. And people don't want to change the status quo because that's how it always was. Greatness is when you are threatened or with taking you off of something and you call Councilwoman Edwards and you say, Councilwoman Edwards, they told me they're going to take me off this thing. What should I do? And she said, they can't take you off. I put you on, and you go and you ask questions because the people need somebody to fight for them. That is greatness.
Now,
that's what it is.
You're defining it. How do we do it then? How do we become great?
Well, first of all, I think that it's part of the awareness. Get back to what Dr. West said. Greatness versus success is the difference between having and being. It has to do with the essence of a person. And when you say, how does greatness look? How does it perform? Greatness addresses challenges with the courage and the capacity to bring change. Greatness instills and embodies a confidence that says, because of who I am, this will no longer be because of who I am. Poverty cannot exist where I am because of who I am. Injustice cannot exist where I am because of where I am. Illiteracy cannot any longer exist in my space because of who I am. That's what greatness looks like. And so when you look at our circumstances, our socioeconomic environments, and you see bigness that's mistaken for greatness, because bigness and greatness are not the same thing. We've got mega churches around mega mess, because bigness is not greatness. We've got...
Okay, now I got to ask the question. What is the threat to greatness? What is the hindrance? What's the threat? We're saying what greatness is. What threatens it? What threatens us from having greatness?
Well,
somebody saying fear.
No, well, I think what threatens greatness is the idea that greatness is not the ultimate thing. We are believers of success being the ultimate thing. And that's an indication of our inferiority and insecurity, because I have to have big stuff in order to feel big. But I don't have to have big stuff in order to be great. I make big stuff happen.
Because I am great.
Because I am great.
Okay. I like it. Very good. Okay. Someone else add on it. Oh, how do I become great?
When I think of greatness, I'm reminded of the quote by Dr. Martin Luther King, who said that anybody can be great because everybody can serve. And listening to Dr. West tonight reminded us about the ability to serve is ministering to the human spirit and to humanity. And so when it comes to being great, Dr. King went on to say that you don't have to have a college degree to serve. You don't have to understand the theory of thermodynamics to serve. You'll need a heart full of grace and a soul generated by love. And I think it's a love for the human spirit that allows us to serve, that allows us to achieve the greatness. And when you take away this idea of needing these prerequisites in order to be great or in order to serve, you take away this idea of putting a cap or a limit on your ability to be great.
You know, Jesus said, the greatest among you, let him be your servant. You're right, you can't get any higher than that. The greatest among us needs to serve. So you're saying a person that serves is a person that is great. That's a fact. Serving community, serving God, serving family, one who will serve is one who is great. That's one quality of a person who is great, one who will serve. Anybody else want to add to that prescription for greatness?
great people make other people great. You see,
I agree with that.
See, it's,
Bishop,
Go ahead.
sorry to be the contrarian and break up the love fest.
All right, break it up. We're strong enough to handle it. Break it up.
You know, he who gives you the diameter of your knowledge controls the circumference of your actions. And so for us to quibble, go back and forth on this 500-year-old language that we inherited called English, let me say this. Greatness may not be as you define it, because Babylon was great, but she was not good. Rome all roads led to Rome in 1,000 years. She was great, but she was not good. 500 years for it to be said that the sun never set on the British Empire, but it did not mean that the British Empire was good. For me, I look at it like this. My grandmother said, on the day I was born, December 6th, I won't say what year, but I was born on her birthday. And she said, that baby boy will say and do everything that I couldn't do. She was born in Wilmington, North Carolina, after what was called the Wilmington Massacre, where there was a white riot and they ran all of the blacks out of power and out of Wilmington, North Carolina. So she always, from a little boy, taught me to do those things. So I was the first in my family to graduate from college. But the one thing about it is I never forgot where I came from. So I came out, I had a good banker's job. I, wore the suit. I went in there, I did everything like that, until one day they saw me on Channel 13, and they said, Bob? That's what they call me. I'm Brother Robert, but they called me Bob. They said, Bob, you are Robert Muhammad, minister, you're that? And then the vice president at the bank I was working at said to me, he said, Robert, Bob is what they call me. You are a loan officer in training to be a vice president. You can't hang with the brothers in the mailroom. I said, you know something? So when I look at it, and I'm going to be the contrarian because that's just the way I am. I'm not going to define great necessarily as being good, nor am I going to diminish success, because Dr. King was successful, and that's what made him great. He was successful in transcending his condition and calling us to a higher calling. And always remember sometimes that you must understand that our prophets, our messengers, our warners, they come to a contemporary people at a contemporary time. They speak a contemporary message that in it has a kernel of universal and eternal truth. Jesus said, he didn't tell him to go tell his disciples, go preach to everybody. He said, first go ye to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. Then eventually he spread the message out. Muhammad started among his people in Arabia, then spread to the world. And so what we've got to understand is that what Jesus said was so instructional that you've got to love your neighbor as yourself. Neighborly love is predicated on self-love. If we don't love ourselves, we cannot love others. We disqualify ourselves. So I want to challenge us, this notion of greatness. I want to push back a little bit, because that's what makes for a good panel and a good debate.
I agree with that.
I'm just going to be the contrarian.
He's ready to talk right here.
No, I like that, my brother. Yeah. No, we got good dialogue going here, though. I like that. Indeed. Now, I think it's very important to draw some distinctions here, though. They say, usually people draw the distinction between the good and the holy. You see, the God made the earth, made time. It was good for 6 days, but the seventh day was holy. Meaning that particular juxtaposition, good and holy, would be slightly different than great versus mediocrity. Because there's a sense in which I never believed that Alexander the Great was really great. Yeah. They got the wrong criteria in mind. He was a gangster who conquered. That's a little different now. See what I mean? Now, somewhere I read, to be great is to do justly, love mercy, walk humbly with that guy. That's right. Now, I went to Sunday school and I believed it. I predicate my life on it. I want to do justly. I want to love steadfastly, because love is not a wayward, sentimental sentiment. It's a steadfast commitment to the needs which are wholly of other people. Now, that's greatness. Is America great? based on the biblical criteria. No. Look in the prisons. Look on the streets of chocolate cities. Look at domestic violence. Look at the greed at the top. America is gigantically successful. Isn't that great? When you look at it through the lens of, as a Christian across, Muslim brother, through the rich legacy of Islam and so forth. So there's a sense in which I'm not sure we're disagreeing.
Right. No.
Is that fair?
That's fair.
Is that fair, though, brother?
Because what I'm hearing over here is that to be great means to serve.
Yeah.
That's what I'm hearing him say, and I don't think we're disagreeing there.
I was not a disagreement because, again, we go back to roots and route.
Yes, yes.
Okay, and so my point is that in the Quran it says, and certainly successful are the believers. So in the Arabic or in the Quranic sense, success is something to be achieved by those who believe. So all I'm trying to do is make for a good conversation.
Right.
I love a love fest, but I like to have good conversation.
Okay, right here,
Because iron sharpens
Brother
iron.
Robert,
right here.
Brother Robert, but to be great
Brother Bob.
is to empower others.
No.
It's to empower others. It is to, when you see someone who needs help, and sometimes they don't know they need help, is to help. And I'll tell a story that happened just last week real quickly. I'm a lawyer, and I was representing a young kid, 19 years old. He had 4 juvenile convictions. He's in the felony courts now, he's an adult. But he didn't have any felony convictions yet. He was charged with a felony, but he hadn't been convicted. So I sat and I spoke to the kid just to have a dialogue with him. And I said, look, you're 19. You're gonna live a really long time, even though I know you probably don't think that. And I said, to have a felony on your record is going to stop you from being able to do what most people want to do with their lives, which is to take care of their families, get a job, provide shelter. You can't get an apartment if you have a felony. Or if you do, it's going to be with a whole bunch of other felons. And so I said, so we need to think about the decisions that you're making. And he said, well, I said, where your mama? Because if it's a village, you got to know where your mama, your daddy, your grandmother. And he said, well, I didn't have a mother. And I said, well, where your daddy? And he said, well, I didn't have a daddy. So that's why I do what I do. And I said, well, no, we need to revisit that. You don't get to do what you're doing just because you didn't have a mom and a daddy. Mm-hmm. I said, so you know what? I'm acting like your mama. And I said, here's what I'm going to do for you. I said, how much education do you have? He said, I dropped out of school in the 9th grade. I said, if you work on getting your GED when you're locked up, I will make it where you will not have a felony conviction. You can do deferred adjudication, which if you successfully complete it, you will not have a felony, which means when you get out of here, will you be better than when you went in? And he had some assault convictions as a juvenile, and I said, I can't help nobody that's violent. I mean, I ain't roll like that. So if you can work on your anger and you can get a GED and empower yourself when you get out, I will help you. And you know what's really funny? All the older guys who've been locked up for years and years and years said, man, you need to listen to her. Why is that? Because they said, we wish somebody talked to us. So I'm talking about empowerment. He didn't have family to teach him that, and now he's changing. So that's what you do. You help empower people.
That's what great people do. They empower other people.
Well, that's what my grandmother told me to do.
And that's what I would think great people ought to do, to empower other people. So what we're saying here, because we have to move to the place of helping, because you can go back and forth and trying to define it, but if we don't come to the conclusion what it is and what we need to do, then we are not successful. On your end, what do we need to do as a great people?
I think that, something that Brother Robert said was very important. We wrestle with a language that we've been delivered over the last 500 years. And we sit and we try and discuss what's the difference between greatness and and success, when ultimately we should adhere to what you're asking is, what does that definition of either word cause us to do? And in order to measure a man's life, the ultimate measure of life, or any entity or institution, has to revert back to the Creator. In other words, I started off by saying being the best that a person could possibly be. In other words, as we say in our Christian belief, How do we, our greatness is defined by the day that we hear the words, well done, thy good and faithful servant. And that's why the definition of greatness has to be attached to a person's level of service. What does that service look like? Evident through the life of the teacher himself. His service was, you asked the question before, what prevents us from being great? What are some of the things that stand in the way of greatness? And it's answered through the audience. That's fear. Because your greatness, your love for someone is defined by your ability to answer Dr. West's question, who is willing to lay down their life for the little boy and the little girl?
Right.
And when we can answer that question honestly and say, I am, when we can answer that question, then we can hear the word, well done, thy good and faithful servant. Then we can, whatever term you want to use, Brother Robert, or the English language suggests we should use, then we can say we've done the best that we possibly could.
The reason why you deal with a theme tonight, success versus greatness, is to understand success is me-oriented, what I can achieve. Greatness is what I can do for somebody else. So no matter what term we use or differentiate between good or great or whatever else, the issue is, am I working for me or am I working for somebody else?
Bishop, sorry, do we have to stay in chronological?
No.
Okay. I don't want to be out of order with the bishop. I don't want to do that.
There's another one. I defer.
Take my ring back or something like that. You asked a question that's predicated upon a belief or an assumption, what do we do as a great people?
Yes.
Which infers that we first understand we are a great people. And I think
We ought to get an ovation that we are great people.
yeah, I'm listening. And I think that that is itself one of our major maladies. It is the misperception that we are not a great people because we don't own high-rises downtown. That we are not a great people because we don't control this system of American capitalism that is based on greed, deception, and murder. Because we interpret ourselves based on what we possess or what we do not possess, and so we view whites as a greater people because they have more stuff. And I think that we have to discover who we are, understanding that we are a great people because we are made in the image and likeness of God with the right to exercise dominion in the earth. So then, we are great not because of what we have, but because of who we are. But now, individually, we discover ourselves. Individual discovery is made through group discovery. I know me based on who I am from and who I am a part of. And once I discover that we are great, then I understand that I'm acting mediocre, even though I am great. We are being or acting mediocre. We are doing average things because we don't understand that we really are a great people. And I think that that's what we've got to discover. I'm close with this. Dr. E.V. Hill, before he died, raised two questions about African Americans. He refused to be called a Negro, an African American. He said, I'm a Negro, because Negroes opened colleges and African Americans let them close. And Dr. Hill said, Negroes open banks, but African Americans let them close. Negroes open insurance companies, but African Americans let them close. Negroes marched together and shared butter and milk from house to house, but African Americans hate each other and won't share. But here's what he said about African Americans. The question, two questions. One is, will we ever become a people again? Because the me mentality that Dr. West talked about tonight prohibits us from becoming a people again.
That's right.
And we'll never discover our group greatness if we are intoxicated with an individual self-perception. Secondly, he said, will we ever have what it takes to make a leader great?
Because people who themselves don't think they're great are too inferior to make a leader great, which is why we pull every potential leader down. That's where Black America suffers.
Okay, based on the time, each one has 60 seconds to discuss. Each one has 60 seconds, and then we must go to the floor. So we just have 60 seconds.
I'm going to jump out real quick here. I haven't said much, but I'm hearing the same thing. I'm hearing, even though you're saying you're being a contrarian, I'm hearing the same thing from you. I'm hearing the same thing from Dr. West. I'm hearing the same thing from the full panel here. And I'm just to put it on the floor. I mean, we're talking about an overwhelming spirit here. We're talking about a sense of community. We're talking about being a part of something. We're talking about an inner linkage here. And that inner linkage, what I'm seeing, that inner linkage is what allows us to recognize not only our greatness, but to become great. When you talk about my friend or my best friend, the circle that I run with, we're a great group of athletes. Then what are you? I'm a great athlete. Or the circle that I run with, we're a great group of pastors. What am I? I'm a great pastor.
That's right.
The circle that we run with, African American, Black people, we're strong Black people. What are you? I'm a strong Black person. But what actually is the underlying inner linkage there? What actually determines that we see ourselves as being great? I mean, you ask the question of where and when. How do we see ourselves? How are we able to view ourselves as being great? Where does that come from? And it's not just a Black person thing. It's not just a pastoralship.
Right.
It's not just an athlete. It's not just being a part of this community right now. There's a deeper understanding, deep meaning, and everything that I think of when I think of myself. And when we open it up to the floor, I'd love to be rebutted on this, and someone can tell me and point me in the right direction. But we are a spiritual people. It's bigger than just the color of our skin. We're a spiritual people, and we are linked spiritually.
Right.
When you wonder why when you see somebody cry, it hurts you.
That's right.
It's not because the person is Black. It's because we are linked spiritually.
Amen.
That's just my feel on it.
You got the mic. You ready to speak to it? Give me your 60 seconds.
I'm going to go back to this idea of service, and I'm going to dwell on that only because I think that when Jesus talked about serving the least of these, and in order for us to recognize greatness, it's one thing for an individual to hold themselves out as great, but we'll go back to what Jolanda said. It's about making sure that you can inspire someone else to greatness. And to me, it goes back to the ability to serve the human spirit and human need.
Excellent.
I'll go to the golden rules. You should do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Prophet Muhammad said you can't be a Muslim, you can't be a believer unless you want for your brother what you want for yourself. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan teach us that if you have a bowl of soup and your brother has none, then half of it is his. And what will make us a great people isn't so much, Bishop Dixon, comparing ourselves to whether we have high rises or cars or money or control of capitalism. But I do want to get into this juxtaposition of terms. What will make us great people is when we break through what I call the watermelon ceiling and we begin to think like this. Instead of talking about citizenship, let's talk about sovereignty. Instead of talking about civil rights, let's talk about human and divine rights. Instead of talking about integration, let's talk about independence and freedom. And when we begin to think like that, then we have the ability to transform this nation. In order to reach beyond these borders, to go to Uganda, I've gone to Africa too, so that we understand ourselves as a global people, and it does not limit ourselves to that. It should be for all of humanity, but our charity begins at home and then spreads abroad.
I'm going to yield my time so we can get to the audience as quickly as possible.
Not a problem. Right here. He's yielding this time. Ready for your comments?
Yes, I am. I believe that we are a community of interdependence. So what happens to you happens to me. That just is. I believe you have to have the courage to call out injustice and inequity. You just have to, even if it puts you in a position to lose something. And as my hero is Muhammad Ali, and it's not because he's an athlete, I'm a former athlete, but he was willing to lose something. And that is why Beulah Shepard, those of you, if you're from Acres Home, you know Beulah Shepard. Beulah Shepard taught me that I'm a Negro. And since I met her in '03, it's like Bishop Dixon said. She said, I want you blacks and African Americans to raise your hands. All y'all blacks and African Americans, raise your hands. Something about the way she said it, I knew I shouldn't raise my hand. And she said, let me tell you about you blacks and you African Americans. We Negroes, we marched. We got dogs sicked on us. We got hoses put on us. We were lynched. We Negroes fought so that we could have equal. And you African Americans move out to the suburbs and you're apathetic to integration and you want to forget where you came from. So what we need to do, and it's like I teach my son Gio out there, he's as good as anyone. And don't you let anybody tell you otherwise. And I tell him to help people. He needs to help people. And I'm going to say it again, he needs to help people who cannot fight for themselves because God has given him gifts and he can do that, and that is what is expected of him. And that is what it takes to be great. And that's my son right there.
I just want to say this as it relates to this issue. When we do come to grips or to terms with the terms greatness and success, how then do we impact the college students that are in this room tonight? Because I think that that's the important issue. We can quibble about the difference and the distinctions to be drawn between these terms, and yet never get down to the reality that greatness is the way you hand something over to others. As a man, as a pastor, I'm already successful, but that doesn't make me great. If I do not duplicate who I am in the lives of other people through humility and sincerity and love, I have failed as a leader. And that's what it comes down to when it comes down to greatness. And that was my original point about being God-centered. When you get where you're going, who are you then? Who are you when nobody's watching? You ought to be able to get up and feel like, you know, I've done the best I can do in this society to hand to others and to impart to others and to impact others' lives in a positive way. When I've done that, I feel like I can say I'm not successful, but now I'm a great man. I'll say this in conclusion. I'll never forget the Honorable Louis Farrakhan said this one time in a speech. He spoke to people in a very powerful way, and he said, rise up, oh brother, and be your noble self. I believe that's what it's about. Nobility comes out of other people putting in you a spirit of greatness, and it has to go beyond an idea. It has to be something that we impact our children with so that they can be that next great generation.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Reed. I want to segue on what Pastor Wright mentioned and how do we impact the college students that are here today. And I would just like to share with you 5 things that have helped me in my life. And there was a young boy in the Bible whose brothers had put him in prison, but he saw beyond his situation. He spoke beyond his circumstance. He stood beyond no support. He survived beyond the seduction. What is seduction? Many people think it's limited to sexual seduction, and many people do get caught there. But it's the seduction of commodities and things and the bling bling. I challenge you, survive beyond the seduction. And lastly, succeed beyond the stats. I'm a young girl that was raised in the projects. My mother raised 5 children alone. I know about food stamps, Section 8 housing, and that good government cheese. Come on. But my mother looked at her 5 babies square in the eye every morning before we left for school. And she said, the projects is where you are right now, but the projects is not where you will be always. So she put something in me that made me, as Joseph, see beyond my situation. Yes. Speak beyond my circumstance. Stand beyond when there's nobody standing with you. He didn't have his brothers with him. He didn't have a mother and a father. And so what do we do today? If you don't have a posse with you, walk all by yourself. Learn to stand alone. Learn to walk by yourself. As the brother down here, dare to be different, whatever that is. And lastly, 4th thing, don't get caught in the seduction of the fast stuff and the quick stuff, because easy come, easy go. And succeed beyond the stats.
Amen.
Because when Jesus posed that question, what does it profit a man? Profit a man to gain the whole world and lose his soul? The answer to that algebraic formula is nothing. It profits a man absolutely nothing to gain the world and lose the soul, which means that the wealth of the material world is the equivalent to the soul of one man. So if we were to truly desire to be a people of great assets and of great value, then we would learn, as we say, when I want to leave a legacy for my son and for my daughter, we will not strive to leave them the things that are tangible, the cars and the houses and the wheels and the things of that nature, but we will strive to be like the teacher who found that it'd be best, as he left his disciples, to leave them with peace, to leave them with love, to leave them with the Comforter. Those were the things that made him great, and those are the things that, as we strive to be a better community and as we learn to love one another, our brothers and our sisters, even beyond our own color, those are the things that will make us a great people.
Excellent. Give them a big hand. Excellent. You take the one mic. We just have a little bit of time. I see it, Dr. Carson is sitting right here on the very front right here, and I know he wants to say something real quickly, and we'll be leaving just shortly here. Who do you have right here? Come on, step right up. Who do you bring in right here? This one right here? One brother and one sister. Then, can we have this one sister right here? Then take this one brother right here, right on the front row right here. Dr. Carson, step right here. Step right. Step, come on, sir. Go ahead.
I've enjoyed the dialogue that I've heard, and the panelists have raised some very, very wonderful and heartfelt and thought-provoking questions. And in the midst of the whole dialogue of success and greatness, the whole issue of practicality comes to mind for me. How do we take the intellectual discussions that we're having today, that in some regards, for some are going over here, and then others over there, how do we take that and make that practical and usable? And being a father of 5 and dealing with a teenage son and having to deal with the issue of greatness for him and defining success. And I happen to think that there is a place where they can work together.
There's a marriage, yeah.
And vision is very important to me, and being able to see. We have to help our young people see something before they can be great, and we have to help them to see the right things before they can be great. So I like to say that we have to be a reflection, and a reflection of who God is and who God has created us to be, and then become so contagious, because when we reflect God, and God is love, and then we love ourselves, and then we love those who we interact with, and we become contagious. So I just wanted to say, I think we ought to have vision that makes us contagious.
Excellent. Excellent. I would agree with that.
Am I addressing the panel or the audience? Okay, I'll stand this way because I like to look at who I'm talking to. One of the things that I wanted to address was Bishop Dixon's question, what will it take for us to become a people? And as I sat down and I really contemplated that thought, there were a few things that came to mind. Number one, we need to reestablish who we are and understand who we are, and I concur with you, Bishop, on that point. The second thing that we need to do is start to respect one another. One of the reasons why there's a breakdown in the African American or the Negro community is because black women and black men no longer respect each other. That has a direct effect on why there are so many single parent homes. That has a direct effect on why our homes have been completely ruined. That's a direct effect on why our kids go to school and are not behaving. That is a direct effect on the fact that we no longer respect each other as men and women. Our family unit has dissolved, therefore our community has dissolved. The other thing we need to get rid of is the house nigga mentality. Not Negro, but the house nigga mentality that says when I get to a particular point, then I'm better than you because I'm no longer in the field with you. And part of the reason why we can't ascend as a people is because once we get out of the house, once we get into the house, we feel that we have arrived, and that, I think, is our biggest issue. We do not understand that we have not arrived. We are not successful. We are not great. So even if you are earning over $100,000 a year, driving your BMW or your Benz, or living wherever you think you live and doing whatever you think you do, you still have not arrived, because all of us are still dealing with some type of racism. And let me say that as long as things like Gina, Louisiana still exist, we have not arrived. So once we understand that and we mobilize and we realize who we are as a people, and that we are still the same powerful people who marched in the 60s, those same powerful people who are sitting on the stage, only then will we be able to remobilize as a people and do the great things that God has intended for us to do.
Good. Well said. Well said. What I'm hearing is that we've defined greatness and trying to put it in some ways we can understand. Okay. Now, okay. What I've heard is an understanding of greatness versus success, and that we should be moving toward greatness versus success. We trying to understand what does that look like. I heard Bishop Dixon say it starts where you are with what you have, serving other people. So we ought to be serving some people. And I heard what you said on the floor is just not what you have right now. It's not the things you have that makes you great. It is what you can do for somebody else. And even having this discussion today is to help us expose the spirit of mediocrity, or expose a mindset that we have made it because we have a little stuff. It is only until we've helped somebody else move from where they are to the next level. So if you don't mind right now, will you make it very tangible and pull on somebody's arm and say, neighbor, as I go, so will you. That's what great people do. Bishop. They help move people to the next level. Bishop. Now, I'm getting word over here that it's time for me to end, right?
Bishop,
and there's going to be a reception.
Bishop, before you dismiss us.
Yes, sir.
Can we do something here that seldom happens in a forum like this? Can we decide on one thing that all of us here can do together? No, just one thing. We got Pastor Remus Wright. We got Minister Robert Muhammad. We got Dr. Dana Carson. We've got Dr. Michael P. Williams.
That's right.
We've got Yolanda Jones. We've got an array. We've got some people in this room. What one thing can we leave here tonight saying we are going to do? Because, and I say this with all sincerity, I'm burnt out on dialogue without direction.
I agree.
And
come here. Anthony, come here. Come to me. Cashel, come. Come on right quickly. Come right here to me. The reason why I have to bring them to the stage is because they are the visionaries to bring this together. These are the two that God put in their heart to bring this form to us. So when we agree on what we are going to do, it's going to come through words they're going to say, and we can sanction that and come with that. And we can flow with them there. So you want a direction of what we can do. When we start dealing with greatness, it has to be something about serving. Because if we're going to be a great people, as you just said with our forefathers, they all served. They had the mindset that something is bigger than me, and I need to be a part of that. So it starts with our serving. Now, I can start also with taking the message that we've just heard and start proclaiming what greatness really is, and define the myth and the lies that we're great because of what we do have. We can do that. And then we can do like Anthony and Cashel has done. They didn't have a whole lot of money or a whole lot of support, but they stepped out and did something based on the vision that they had. Now, each one of us have a vision and a dream. We got to be bold enough to bring it to pass. So if we can challenge everyone that's in this room to whatever your dream is, you do it. and you make it happen. Now, just for about 30 seconds, they can talk about this, and I think we can all agree that whatever dream that we have, whatever vision we have, we can do that and serve somebody by doing our dream and fulfilling our vision.
He always gives it to me to talk. I want to first thank you guys for coming out on behalf of Prodigium Media. My husband and I, we are just very tremendously blessed to have such a great and esteemed panel tonight, and I have just learned so much and gotten so much, and I just hope that you guys have listened, and like Bishop Dixon said, just not come here for dialogue, but just be propelled to act and to do and to be better and to just step out of mediocrity and just don't let average be your enemy anymore. So this is what I want to do. I want to ask everybody in here, if you have a vision in you, if you have a gift in you, we all have certain different giftings, go mentor somebody else. Bring somebody else up from you. Mentor somebody else. Don't just have this for yourself. And a lot of times we have this, we live on an island where it's just, I just want to get this and I don't want to network with anybody else because I don't want them to supersede me. It's not about that. It's about helping others. So I just want to encourage everyone to encourage someone else, mentor someone else, and just be better tonight.
First of all, I would like to personally thank Bishop Beatty for doing a wonderful job this evening. And each and every one of these people, there's not one person up here that couldn't have had something else that they could be doing on a Friday night. And each one of them that I asked to be a part of this, nobody hesitated. Not one person hesitated. And I thank you all, and I love you so much for that. As for what she was saying about the mentoring piece, that's very important. And I think the most important thing is when you call someone your friend, you should want them to have more than you. You should want them to exceed you. You should want to see them do well. Yes. And we have to keep that mindset at all times. And if you do that, we will all be better through making each other better.
Excellent. Thank you.
Good night.
Dr. West is going to give us a charge and a challenge. Yes.
Well, I tell you, first thing we want to do is just acknowledge the high quality of the panel. This was a very serious conversation. This was a serious dialogue. And you always have to distinguish a dialogue from a chit-chat. It's true. Because chit-chat, you just say things, but you don't take a risk. You're not vulnerable, so you're not different after it's over. A dialogue, you ought to be a little different. You ought to change. You ought to have some Socratic energy so some of your assumptions are examined. So your soul is stirred a little bit. So you're more empowered and you feel more bold and fearless to stand up. That's dialogue. That's one of the differences between a jazz orchestra and some of the classical orchestras. They play every note on the page exactly as it's on the page. Whereas jazz depends on how we feeling tonight. You're going to have a dialogue with the notes and the sounds and the silences between the sound. Right? But what we saw was some jazz tonight. Because they were actually putting their souls on the line in their reflections, all in very unique and distinctive ways, all of them rich. We can learn something from each and every one of them. But then at the end, the question is, what you gonna do? What you gonna do? The fundamental question in life is, will you or won't you have it so? Will you or won't you have it so? That's going to draw the difference between the wheat and the chaff, the cowardly and the courageous, those who talk a good game and those who got deep love and commitment to justice. And that's what greatness in the end is. That's why I always go back to the elders, the foremothers and the forefathers. They didn't just talk. You could see the love in action. Why? Because they went to the edge of the abyss. It's like a Eddie Kendrick solo or Marvin Gaye, way up in falsetto. You know when a man shouldn't be singing that high, but they on the edge anyway. They taking a risk and sounding so good. That's the history of black folks. Living on the edge. What you gonna do? Smile, be stylish, keep loving, and create something that the whole world has to take notice of. What happens when you fall over the edge? I fall over the edge. Because everybody dies. Everybody dies. Try again, fail better. That's what Samuel Beckett says. Everybody is in that sense a failure. Because they can't free. Can you imagine what Marcus Garvey really wanted to do? He wanted black people all around the world to rise up to where our dear brother Minister Louis Farrakhan talks about it. Up, you mighty race, be great. That was his vision. He failed because he couldn't follow it through, but was he great? Yes, he still was great. Because his language, his actions live in us. Martin the same way. Did Martin's dream ever become a reality? Hell no. He died wrestling with the nightmare. That's why he was on the south side of Chicago. That's why he was on his way to Chocolate City, D.C. He's wrestling with the nightmare. Was he great? Hell yes. We can go on and on again. Minister Louis Farrakhan, this very moment, I told you I talked with him yesterday. Has his dream come true for black people? No. He cries for the condition of black folk because he loves us so. Does that mean that his legacy will not be rich? It will be very rich because of the love that he has. That's the point we're making. So when we talk about what do, yes, my dear brother, we do talk about the HIV and AIDS epidemic that's ravaging the community. And say we got to take responsibility of our bodies. Brothers, respect your body and the body of sisters. Sisters, don't give in. Yes, that's taking responsibility. But that's part of the self-respect and self-love and self-regard and self-determination we've been talking about all night. That's just a version of it. Same is true on the job. Middle-class Negroes in corporate space and professional managerial spaces. Do you think you can make it all by yourself, isolated and autonomous? Maybe for a moment. But as soon as you hit up against a stone wall, all of a sudden folk get militant again. Oh, yeah, Negroes get black real quick. Oh, they get black real quick when it's their son who's in trouble, their daughter in trouble, them trouble on the job. My dear brother asked, when will black people ever become a people again? It's a profound question. I know what the answer is in part. That's externally induced. That if the powers that be decided to engage in repressive measures for every Negro across the board, all of a sudden we unified. You got Sister Letitia right next to Oprah. You here too with all your billions of dollars? Yeah, they turned on black folk. Y'all see the point I'm making? Now, I don't push for that, I don't promote that, but there's certain external conditions that are in place we have to keep track of that make it either difficult or not difficult. If middle-class black people were terrorized in the way poor, everyday black people are in the hood, there'd be a different kind of level of unity. Because the assumption is, I have now gotten so far removed from that, I'm no longer connected to that. I'm in bourgeois space now. I'm enjoying the felicities of bourgeois existence. It's what James Weldon Johnson called drunk with the wine of the world. You remember that line? He said, I hope the Negroes don't become drunk with the wine of the world. See, Donald Trump is no paradigm for defining humanity. He just got a lot of money, that's all. My point is this, that, and I know it's getting late, my point is I just get fired up when I can hear all this wonderful dialogue. God Almighty. I know it's late too. What is the one thing we can agree on? I think it's 3 different levels. First, a symbolic level, that we go out and tell folk that something happened here at University of Houston tonight that's part and parcel of an awakening that has been taking place around the country. Y'all know about the covenant movement with Brother Tavis? You know about what's been going on with other organizations? Because Brother Tavis is so great and grand in his own way, but he doesn't have a monopoly on it. He's in relation to other organizations. Nation of Islam programs. NAACP trying to get their act together. God bless him. Mark Murray, y'all, doing his work. There's no doubt that there's a new day in hip hop, y'all. Don Imus made his contribution. But we got to go out and tell folk that there's an awakening taking place. There's a new day in Black America. That's symbolic. Then individually, what we decide to do, to become more bold and courageous on our jobs, in our churches, mosques, and synagogues, and do something concrete like either mentor a young brother or sister. I'm not going to dictate what you do, but do something concrete so you agree to do it. Now, this is still abstract in the sense that we all not doing one thing, but we're agreeing to do one thing, so you're going to do something, but it may be different than what somebody else chooses to do. And then the last thing we want to do is that we want to, in some way, how can I put this though? Because the first is really symbolic and the second one is individual. We want to, in some way, decide to join an organization that we're not affiliated with, or become more active in the organization we're already members. Because in the end, no matter how bold you are, and we started off talking about Ms. Louis Farrakhan, unbossed and unbought, bold and unafraid. No matter how bold you are, if you are unorganized, that's right. You're still relatively powerless.
Amen.
Absolutely. You got to be organized. Old Brother Stokely Carmichael, Kwame used to teach us over and over again. Ella Baker used to teach us that you got to be organized, affiliated, part of not just motion and momentum, but maybe even a movement. And movements are created not just by individuals who love and are committed to service, but a collection of and organizing and mobilizing of individuals. You all see where I'm going? Thank you so very much for being here tonight. Thank this wonderful panel. Thanks, Sister Anthony and Cashel. And y'all stay strong. God bless you and be with you. And remember the great legacy.